Hello, everybody. My mic is working. Don't worry. And we are back here on the free to play today. So, a lot of stuff going on in Raid outside of Raid. I realize those two phrases contradict each other, but the reality is there's a lot of drama going on right now. Um, I don't know if it's because if one thing led to another, or if it just happens to be two simultaneous situations going on that are not good for the game, I would say. Um, but to be honest, neither one of them really impacts our account. I do want to talk about it, but I'm going to wait to talk about it at the end of the video, mostly because it will make me shorten what I want to say. I'll look down and I'll be like, oh crap, we're at 30 minutes, and then I'm going to stop talking. If I start now, I won't stop until the 30-minute mark. And I don't want this video to be all about the drama going on in Raid. There are some things that I really want to talk about right now that will benefit you as a new player in the game or as a free-to-play player. I want to make sure that you understand the value of certain events going on. So yesterday, I did mention that we would not be experiencing a 2x event over this weekend, and I was correct. We're getting instead a progressive chance event. So I'm going to go over it briefly. Most of you can probably figure it out, for yourselves. But basically, what it means is that instead of a times 10 chance to get specific champions, there is a times 15 chance. Now, if it were me and I was picking for this account, I would actually pick I'd probably go with these on this account. And then on this account, I would go with Stagnite, mostly because I already have Lady Annabelle. So why these champions? Well, Nekmothar is just a really, really strong champion, and he's really, really good in Hydra. Now, on my main account, I would have gone Contra instead of Staltus because I already have two of them. Um, and then Theodore is just incredibly strong, and if I was to pull him on this account, it'd kind of be GG at that point. There'd be very little content left that we wouldn't really be able to do if we had Theodore. That might be a bit of a strong statement, but Theodore is very, very good, um, and we would be able to capitalize with him. He would be the instant replacement for Monkey King in my clan boss team and everything. So now I'm not going to be pulling shards during this event. So let's talk about what a times 10 event is, or in this case, a times 15 event. So does it interestingly enough, they no longer have the thing that explains, well, they do. I think it's in the news. It's in the news release. Okay. I'm going to read it because I want to make sure that I like the way that they word it because they're very clear about it, which I appreciate. Okay, the chances of summoning epic and legendary champions from shards are the same as normal. If you summon a champion, and then yeah, it just goes into the details. The biggest thing is that it's the normal chances. So what are my chances with my 53 shards right here to pull a legendary? My chances are 0.5% to pull a legendary right now. Then I get a fit. So that's just to pull a legendary. Then I get a 15% chance, or in the other version of it, a 10 times chance. Sorry, I said percent. Let me slow down here. We get normally these are called 10 times events, where you get a 10 times chance that the champion that you get will be a specific champion that you may want to target. In this case, it's a times 15 chance. And then if you pull a legendary and it's not one of the ones that's in the times 15, your chances go up to a times 20. Now, how does that benefit you? Well, you have to pull another legendary from your shards in order to get the added benefit. If you were to pull 2 legendaries, so right now, just for my account's sake, just for simplicity, we're saying on 53 shards, I pulled 2 legendaries, and neither one of them is one of the 3 that are on a 20 times chance. Then it goes up to a 25 times chance that it would be one of them. So just to make it clear that you still have to be able to pull the legendary. Now, if you are on an account that has been saving shards for a very, very long time, this is a really good opportunity because you can guarantee yourself some really strong champions. Now, that's from the legendary perspective, but there's also the epic. Now, they have done 10 times chances on epics. I still don't recommend for a free-to-play to pull during those times. However, if it was a very powerful epic, that's where the value is. Let me explain. So your chances to pull an epic are 8%, but we also have the mercy system. So after 20 summons without an epic, your chances go up. Now it's 200 for legendaries, but only 20 for epics. So it's never going to be like I could do the math. I'm not going to because A, I haven't done it beforehand, and B, I don't want to screw up the math because math is my weakest subject. I'm not a math guy at all. But let's say that we only ever hit the beginning of mercy, because mercy technically isn't 20 summons. Mercy is technically 20 plus however many 2% you need to add for each shard that gets you to 100%. That would be your epic mercy. In reality, I feel like it is entirely possible that you could pull the 40 shards or whatever and only get 1 epic. Like, that's possible. But I feel like within every 20 to 30 shard pulls, I would probably get some kind of epic. The reason I mention that is because if the epics are good, there's really good value that can be had pulling during because you can get, not guarantee, but you can heavily increase the chances that your epic will be a good epic. Now, I'm still not going to do that because I don't think that I'm very against pulling during non-2 times events. While it is very beneficial to get a very specific epic, and in this case, Stag Knight is incredibly good, and for a free-to-play account would be extremely powerful. I still would rather get... I would still rather pull during a 2 times event. That's just solely my opinion. There's probably math out there that could explain why this is such a better event. But for me, I like the 2 times events better. And those are the ones that I'm going to stick by. That being said, there are a few exceptions. For many of you, Stag Knight might be the exception where you would want to pull during this event. My exception would be Geomancer. If Geomancer was here or instead of Annabelle or Stag Knight, I would pull during this event to try and get myself a Geomancer. Because I theorized that with the number of shards that I have, I could get at least 2 chances at an epic. It's not mathematically sound. It's just based on a feeling, based on what I see when I pull shards. There's 2 ends of that spectrum. There's really good lucky times and really unlucky times. Geomancer is the one champion that I would go for in that regard as far as epics go. And I do think that you'd have a better chance of pulling epics during this event than you would during the legendaries. For obviously reasons. 8% versus, what was it, 0.5, right? Yeah. So now, let's talk about the Void Shards. If I was to pull Tamesia, that would revolutionize my account. Because I would be able to do Spider up to 20 by using the HP burn tactic. And probably high. I could actually, honestly, with Tamesia, I could probably go all the way to 25. Just because of her being void, she'll always land her stuff. On my main account, I did participate in this because I really want a White Dryad Nia. The reason is because I have a 6-star soul for White Dryad Nia, and there's a really good team that's being theory crafted right now. Well, I guess not theory crafted. He showed that it worked by Saf, who's part of the Hell Hades network. That White Dryad Nia and Emic can work really well together as to accomplish several different goals within your Hydra team. So, I only had 7 Void Shards left after pulling heavily for Acrizia, who I got. But so I like the event overall, but I want to put some perspective on it because as a free-to-play player, you should really be considering just the epics and not so much the legendaries because the chances are very, very low. Now, the chances change when you have a large collection of shards, and anyone that's been saving up for a very, very long time would benefit them to pull during this event. The main reason I'm not interested in Stag Knight, as good as he is, as good as Stag Knight is, with the decreased speed, the decreased attack, and decreased defense on the same ability, and then this passive, which is very, very effective. As good as he is, I have both of these debuffs. Yes, they're across 2 characters, but I have both of those debuffs right now. I don't have decreased speed, which would be kind of nice to have, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely an argument that can be made to say, okay, well, Stag Knight, there's always scenarios where champions will be better than others, and it's definitely debatable, but I'm really happy with my Deacon Armstrong and Ursula combo. So because I'm already so against pulling during 2x events, I didn't want to chase after this particular pull because it's not an improvement enough on my account to risk a lot of my shards for, because eventually a 2x will come. And I would rather have a 16% chance at getting epics in general, one of which could easily be a Stag Knight, than pull during a 10x just to get Stag Knight, who is very strong, but I already have those buffs. It just is the juice worth the squeeze here? And for me, and again, my opinion, not dogging on Stag Knight. Please don't hit me in the comments and be like, you're an idiot, Stag Knight's so good. I get it, he is good. It's the juice just isn't worth the squeeze for me. I want to play the game a certain way, and I want to have fun, and I don't particularly view this event as I wouldn't be, if I was to get Stag Knight, I don't think I'd be jumping up and down like I would be for Geomancer, for example. And likewise, both the epics for this account, as good as White Dryad Nia is, I would not pull my 7 Void Shards for her. Now, there is one other thing I want to comment on about this event, and that would be that I kind of like pulling Void Shards during non 2x events. And I say kinda because there's an increased chance for me to pull a Cold Heart, who would also change my account very heavily. However, I feel confident that I'm going to get her over time and would still rather pull during a 2x event where I could get something like Godseeker Aniri or a Seer. Those are just the first 2 that come to mind. There are plenty of other good Void Epics out there. So I hope I'm being clear. I'm really not trying to like piss anybody off or anything like that, but I wanted to put my perspective on the event from a free-to-play point of view. You may not share that opinion. Feel free to pull your shards right now. I think I don't think it's necessarily wrong. And if you don't have a deacon like me, it might be a good time to pull because you can get a decreased attack and a decreased defense champion in one, plus accuracy for your team, plus a decreased speed, which I currently don't have on any of my characters at the moment. So there is a lot of value in a Stag Knight, absolutely. So if you don't have the Deacon Ursula combo that I'm so lucky to have right now, then there's a real possibility that this might be the time to pull shards for you because you get an increased chance at a Stag Knight. Okay, I think I've discussed that particular subject enough. Let's talk briefly about the drama. So Raid is nerfing a champion. We actually pulled this champion and I held on to them. I did not feed them. In the event that they didn't nerf him, but it was expected that the nerf was coming because they made a comment in a little while ago that there are certain characters that are overperforming. And they were talking about Madman here. So his A1 has a 50% chance of attacking all other enemies with a second hit that would deal 30% of the damage inflicted from the first hit. Now, I'm not going to get into all the specifics. I would go to the HH Gaming Network channel where Saf is there to... He's the one that I've seen it from. There are other content creators that have made stuff about it. I think Scratch has as well. But he... Basically, you get double multipliers from the hit. So the initial hit would hit, and then that 30% extra would gain additional multipliers that would make it do large amounts of damage. Now, this is something that is currently being exploited with Trunda, but in order for it to work with Trunda, because it's her A2 or A3, I can't remember off the top of my head, because it revolves around that particular attack, it needs to be cooldown refreshed. And Yumiko is the only champion, not the only, but Yumiko refreshing that cooldown has led to these really heavy hitting teams that can be difficult to compete with. So what has the Raid community pissed off is that they are nerfing Madman so that this second attack can no longer be critical and not targeting the Trunda Yumiko team that's doing insane amounts of damage. I do want to just check and see if we don't really come across them that much, but I do want to look and see if any of these teams are using the Trunda Yumiko. And notice that none of these teams are also using the Madman team. It would be, if anyone was doing it, it would be their highest difficulty team. So, Yeah, none of the teams that we're going against at this difficulty are using it. Um, Nor are they um using a madman team either. So so what is my opinion on it? I'm not a fan of the nerf. I was going to build him. I was going to build Madman once I learned about the team. I'm glad I didn't. He's only up to, I think, a 4 or 5 star on my account. So now he's just food. No problem. Um, it isn't a good look. And I agree with some of the assessments out there that are saying, hey, you need to target the problem, not specific champions that you don't want to experience that impact. Because it doesn't necessarily make sense that it's okay for Trunda to do it, but not okay for Madman to do it. I think ultimately they chose their words wrong in their explanation. They basically said that it's not okay for Madman to do it, but it's okay for Trunda to do it because the amount of resources that you would need to get the team that can do it with Trunda, like it's really hard to build that team. That's their stance. And then they're like, and that team isn't going to impact other lower tier clans because, or people that don't have it, because the matchmaking isn't going to line up, meaning that my clan isn't going to go up against a Trunda Yumiko team because we're not putting up these crazy high numbers in Hydra. The problem is that the same argument can be made for Madman. On my main account, I have several ally attackers. If I were to get a Madman and get him to take as many turns as possible with his A1 and try to do as much damage with that particular ability that was, you could argue, was bugged, um, I'm going to match up against other teams that are doing the same or that are doing the Trunda Yumiko thing. So I just don't agree with their assessment. I don't agree with their defense. To be quite frank, I don't necessarily care about the decision that much. I would just prefer it if they were like a little more honest about it. Because the reality is, like, they just, in order for me to get for this account to get a Trunda Yumiko team, I would have to pull a lot of shards to get the right champions to do it, or get very, very lucky where I already have a Madman on a free-to-play account. So it's, I understand the frustration. For me, I'm just a person that likes honesty, and I would rather them just be like, yeah, no, we just don't want a rare to have that kind of power. And I kind of understand that. But it also brings into the question, if you go that route, it brings into the question rares in general and where you see them being, because rares do a lot of crazy things. Now, they're very specific rares, but Cold Heart is a very strong rare that can change the course of the game. I don't have one, but she can open up a lot of areas in the game, and I still use Cold Heart on my main account quite often. Honestly, only recently did I start replacing her with the Crizia instead. Likewise, Eris and her abilities make a lot of unkillable teams work, and make them work relatively early on in the game. Now, it's a strategy that Plarium has long been like, okay, yeah, unkillable, that's fine. But it just makes me wonder why these rares are okay, but the Madman one isn't. So I'm not trying to be too negative. I'm trying to be a little reserved and understanding, and I can get it. I mean, if you started up Raid and you were able to achieve all of the content with nothing but rares, then it does degrade some of the value of other things. But I don't necessarily think that that means that you need to keep overpowered champions per se. So I don't know. It's really hard for me to find the right words because I don't want to seem too combative, but I'm also kind of indifferent to it because, quite frankly, it doesn't affect me. I was going to build a Madman, but I paused because I got the feeling they were going to nerf him, and they did, and I'm just not going to build him, and it doesn't hurt me at all. But it's a selfish way of looking at it because there's a lot of people that did get hurt. And I want to point one thing out that popped into my head. In other games, when they nerf champions, there's usually some kind of I don't know the right word to use here. They usually recoup players or compensate players for the change. For example, I know in Hearthstone, they've gone so far as to heavily nerf certain characters in the game and then offer I don't remember how they did it, but I think they offered like a full dust refund for those champions, meaning that if you chose to get rid of them instead of getting a percentage back in dust, you would get all of it back. I could be completely wrong. I haven't played that game in like 3 years, but um, it I just remember them doing something of like, hey, we nerfed this champion, but we want to make it up to you, so here's this stuff. Um, Now to all those players that built a Madman up thinking like this is my answer to Hydra Clash, well, now their answer is gone. And number two, is this going to impact their matchmaking? Are they now competing with people that have Trunda Yumeko, but they don't have their answer anymore in the more free to play, or not free to play, but the more friendly to build Madman team? So I don't know. It's a very interesting situation, and it can cause a lot of problems for them. And they certainly botched the the public relations side of it, because I think that this like dismissive, like, oh, he's not supposed to be that powerful, is a little misleading. And I think the raid community is a little too smart to see through that. But you know so then there's this whole content creator thing where they're calling out content creators to basically one content creator, I can't remember his name because he's not one that I follow, called out all of the content creators and asked that basically proposed that all the content creators band together to get people to stop spending money on the game in order to force Raid to make changes. You can argue the value of that approach. I don't, they admitted in their video, I believe, that there's no real chance to make that big of a dent. But we have seen the community make changes in the game before, such as with Primal Shards. The cost did go down. They're still way too expensive, but the cost did go down. I would also like to say that no one really talked about it, but they did up the Hydra Clash rewards to first of all, mythical tomes from Hydra Clash. Like, that's a big deal. Like, one of the reasons that Clan Boss is so good is because you can get tomes from him on top of shards. Well, now you can get primal shards almost. I mean, I picked a low one. Let's go to a high one. You're guaranteed to get a primal shard from the high one, and there's a chance you could get up to 2 mythical tomes. I mean, that's pretty significant. And I don't think enough people are talking about this. And I think people would be talking about this if they weren't pissed off about the Madman nerf and the whole Xena debacle as well, where you have a direct cash for champion situation. It's not hidden behind a fragment summon or anything like that. It's just straight up, you give me cash, I give you champion, which I don't agree with either. But well, that's 30 minutes. I told you guys I would shut up after 30 minutes. So, um, I want to shut up, but I'm gonna try to make this very, very quick. Really, really, really good comments lately. Y'all have been leaving me like paragraphs as far as content, as far as comments rather. And I liked a lot of the tips in there that you've given me about like giving. One of them in particular was talking about me giving very brief little segments at the beginning of all my videos that talk about, hey, this is a new area of the game that I want to explain and inform you about. At least that's how I interpreted what they said. I kind of read it off my phone, and that was a couple hours ago, so I don't have it memorized, but I liked that idea, and I'm definitely going to try and figure out a way to run with that idea to try and bring a little bit of new life into these the free to play. How Hades talked about how his free to play series will be very, very, very strong at the beginning and then fall off at the end because now you're just playing the game. Free to play is very, very fun at the beginning, and then it falls into the same complacent. No, that's not. I don't want to say stagnant either. I don't know, but it falls into the same model in the mid game, where you're kind of just grinding until the next time to pull champions. That's where we're at. Like, I don't really have anything to show you guys. I don't have anything new or exciting. The other thing we didn't talk about is you can now get Primal Quartz from Live Arena, which makes Live Arena something that I've already talked about why you should do it. You'll see that I haven't. I've been deranked. I want to do it more. Whenever it's active, I am busy. So if you look right now, it's not open for another 3 hours or 2.5 hours, and I'm going to be asleep. And when it was open was my, dinner time, spending time with my family, putting my daughter to bed, and then getting ready to record a video. So I just don't my schedule doesn't line up with their, frankly, artificial schedule. That's a video for another day where I can claim about that. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I appreciate all your support. I appreciate you sitting through. If you're still watching, I appreciate you sitting through 32 minutes of my nonsense. So I'm excited. Keep an eye out for the next question block where I'll address some of the stuff we talked about, and specifically the Leorius thing, which, by the way, the Leorius is not my champion. It is somebody else's champion. So I don't know if the comment about that was directed to help the individual who had the question or to give me an idea of what to do, but I will talk about all that stuff in the question block video. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.